CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lamp.
Lambing's just around the corner. Spring feed planning starts well before lambing begins, though, with potential for an El Niño conditions to develop later this season. Sheep and beef farmers are already thinking about how they meet their feed demand through spring and summer. Joining us to talk about this is Dr Will Talbot, Scientific Officer at Ravensdown, who specialises in nitrogen and soil fertility. He studied agricultural science at Lincoln University, graduating with first-class honours before completing a PhD. Got the Dean's Honours list in soil and focused on the nitrogen cycle. Will has published multiple peer-reviewed papers to help him inform smarter nutrient management across New Zealand farming systems. Well, welcome to the program, mate.
Thank you, Andy. Cheers for having me.
You're a lot smarter than I am when it comes to this sort of thing.
No,
but we're still in winter. But you're encouraging farmers to think about spring feed now. Why is this critical?
Mm-hmm. Spring's a really, really important time. Getting that pasture there for our ewes so they can, have a good body condition score, lactate well, feed those lambs, put a lot of weight on them as soon as we can. And it's obviously a time of year where the amount of feed we have can get pinched as well. So pre-lambing in is a tool that some farmers can pull to increase the amount of pasture grown during that time of year. And our sheep and beef pastures coming out of winter can be very nitrogen deficient. Those clovers are asleep, the bugs in the soil are asleep, and we've had a bit of leaching. So those soils can be really responsive to nitrogen at that time of year as well.
All right. Is there a right or a wrong time?
That's a good question. Is there a right or a wrong time?
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about soil temperatures and the right time to put it on to get... Because let's face it, and I know you're a fertiliser company, but this is an expensive input, right? We don't want to waste it.
That's true, yeah. So obviously if the soils are waterlogged, all those things we want to avoid. We want to make sure that the plants are starting to grow, it's not waterlogged, and kind of obviously the later you can leave it, the better the response you'll get. But if you apply a bit earlier, you're sacrificing a bit of the response, but you're getting that timing when you want it, growing the extra feed when those lambs are hitting the ground.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a trade-off there, right?
Yes.
But you've got to get it right. So when it comes to that, obviously the benefits of growing feed early means that you've got the right feed at the right time for the lambs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that period is so critical of feeding those ewes well, getting them lactating really well, getting that milk into the lambs, and that milk is such good quality feed, and they can put on weight, so much quicker. And getting those lambs to have weight on early and getting them off farm early is going to, potentially is going to be even more important this year if there's some models, predict we do have El Niño conditions.
Well, you've just managed to lead into my next question. So I was going to ask you about that because we are hearing a lot of talk about it, and we spend a lot of time talking about this on CountryWide Connect with Tony T from Blue Skies Weather, and the jury's out whether there's an El Niño coming. I think that's pretty locked in, whether it's a standard El Niño or in some outfits a super El Niño. How should this though be factored into this conversation we're having now?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's hard to predict the weather. If we could predict the weather perfectly, that would be great. But as you mentioned, a lot of the models and predictions are saying there is a strong chance of El Niño. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but if that happens, we want to grow as much feed as early as we can to get, our stock off farm, reduce that demand, and make the most of that potentially shorter growing period.
Yeah, and coming, like we're talking about using nitrogen, and getting it ready for our lambs, because these things, they're going to be worth a bit this year, aren't they? I mean, really, you don't want to undercook them. That's wrong. Underdo them. We want to cook them later on. Not yet.
Yeah, it's because it's potentially quite a unique season. We had last summer we had good prices. We had in large parts of the country a really good summer and autumn. The ewes are in good condition. We have higher scanning percentages in many places. So that means more lamb demand potentially next year, potentially the El Niño. So quite a unique outlook next season.
Yeah, which you want to make the most of and take advantage of. And you're right, it is unique because we've got coming out of some really good conditions, coming into some uncertain conditions. So the way to ensure against that is to make sure you've got enough quality. And enough pasture. Are you recommending all sheep and beef farmers apply nitrogen early this spring?
No, so this isn't a as always, every farm, every region, it is so different, and farm systems are all set up so uniquely. So this isn't a blanket recommendation, but it is a really important tool for some farmers to be able to pull that lever if they need that feed at that time of year.
Yeah, I guess, and the point of this conversation is to get farmers thinking about it, right? We're not telling them, you're not telling them, be careful here, you're not telling them to do it, but it's a consideration to start thinking. It
is a consideration of starting thinking this early, and if you're going to pull that lever, it's getting all that sorted early is great.
What about, and I'm interested in this, there's a lot of tools out there, what about strategic applications, maybe using Hawkeye, those sort of things to make sure that you're putting it on individual paddocks?
Yeah, so there's, you can target paddocks that, might be more responsive, or paddocks where you might have stock that you really want to feed well, early, use early multiples, those sort of things.
Yeah, precision ag is something which we're hearing a lot about. Not just on the applications, but actually making sure that, as you said, you're applying the nitrogen to the right areas. So what should farmers then be considering? So we've triggered a conversation, or this conversation's triggered someone's thought, okay, I need to think about that. What should they be thinking about then, whether they're deciding whether to apply nitrogen early?
Big thing is the feed budgeting. Do I need that extra feed is a huge part of it, but also looking at those soil moisture conditions, soil temperatures, seeing they're starting to rise, and thinking, nitrogen takes a wee bit of time to be applied to the soil, go into the plant and see their response. So applying that ahead of when you need that additional feed. So looking ahead and feed budgeting, feed planning, and the conditions on farm as well.
And I would have thought that if you're unsure, getting a bit of extra advice.
Absolutely. Our Agri Manager team is out there to help you guys make those decisions and be as strategic and intelligent with those decisions as we possibly can be.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of knowledge. One of the other things I'd recommend is talking to older farmers who have been through some of these conditions in the past, right? And asking them what their experience was at that time, because that, I suppose, institutional knowledge, that baked-in knowledge can be very helpful, because a lot of farmers, younger farmers, won't have gone through potentially a season like we've got coming up.
Heck yeah, there's a lot of valuable experience and knowledge out there, and that's the more people you talk to, the better idea you'll get of what's right and what's the best way to go for you.
One thing we haven't talked about is, I suppose, application rates. I know everyone's, there's caps and everyone wants to make sure we've done that. Is there an ideal in coming into a situation like this? We hear little and often, or what do you think?
Yeah, like every good answer, it depends. We're usually talking somewhere between 25 kgs of N to 50 kgs of N. So that's 50 to 100 of urea, and that'll depend on how much feed you need. For these sheep and beef systems, quite often it's something like 30 kgs of nitrogen being applied to increase pasture growth in those areas.
All right. Big topic. I know it's a really tricky one, because we are talking about building a bank, right, and potentially thinking about making sure that we get the best out of these lambs when they hit the ground, and then got the consideration of the El Niño coming in. So it's not an easy one. As we just said before, advice, I would have thought, talk to your Ravensdown team.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Getting those pasture covers in good condition, getting those those ewes in good condition, getting those, the milking well, lambs putting weight on quickly, getting them off farm, while that schedule price is high, before that potential dry, all good things.
That's the last thing we want, is to get caught in a drought like that. Hey, really appreciate your time, Dr. Will Talbot, their Senior Scientific Officer for Ravensdown. Great to have you in studio. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Cheers, Andy. You too, mate. Thank you.
All right.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lamb.